Okay, shall we get started?
Sure, ready when you are.
Okay, all right. All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Himani, for joining. So I'll do a little introduction. Today's session is going to be about sleep and how we're able to support ourselves as mothers. So Himani Dalmia is a certified infant and child sleep specialist, co-founder of the support group Gentle Baby Sleep India, and a leader of the Leche League. She is also a co-author of Sleeping Like a Baby, The Art and Science of Gentle Baby Sleeping, published by Penguin Random House. She has helped thousands of parents achieve healthier sleep for their babies and themselves using only biologically normal sleep practicing techniques. Himani graduated with honors in English from St. Stephen's College, Delhi University, and holds a master's degree in South Asian literature from the University of Oxford. She lives in New Delhi with her husband, Akash, and two girls, Devika and Yamini. Thank you so much for joining us today. I will hand it over to you, where we'll go through your presentation, and then we'll leave it area at the end for question and answer.
Great. Thank you so much, Zareen. It's really wonderful to be here amongst so many like-minded parents and, talking about, well, clearly one of my favorite topics. Before we get started, I would love to have a sense of how old the babies are here. If everyone could just either put in the chat box the age of your babies, or maybe okay, if your baby is over a year old, like, or Zareen, do you have a sense for what the age group might be? Is it mostly like under 1 year olds, or is it toddlers?
I think it's a mix because most are still feeding maybe through the night, even for toddlers. So I would say we can, if it's under one, yeah. So everyone just maybe type in the chat box what the age group is: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That'll give you a good idea, but mostly under 5, I would say, and not all sleeping through the night.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely fine. And a lot of it is common, for that entire age group, but it'll just help me kind of sharpen my focus and make it more relevant if I because there's a lot of material to cover. I mean, it's literally a book, so I don't want to go through the entire book and, just kind of focus a bit.
So we have 9 months, all under a year, I would say, would be the main focus.
Right. All right, fine. Let's just jump in and see how things go. So I see a lot of under 1 year olds. I see someone, of course, has 3. Um, all right. Are there any others who are over a year old, apart from someone's babies? Anyone else who's over a year old? Okay, because then I won't spend a huge amount of time talking about toddlers. I mean, we can touch upon it, but okay, lots of toddlers in our group who are still nursing, right? And I think this video will also be available later, so perhaps I'll try to keep it broad-based in that case. Okay, great. So thank you, Zareen, for that introduction. Just to tell you a little bit about, how I went down this this journey of baby sleep. So I have 2 daughters, Devika and Yamini. They're now 8 years and 5 years, respectively. So about 8 years ago, when Devika was a newborn, the newborn phase was fuzzy, of course. It was a big blur. And then when Devika was about 3 months old, she was sleeping really well. Like, she was sleeping these 6-hour stretches at night, 7 hours. I would wake up like in a panic to check on her, like leaking and fully engorged, and like wondering, why is this baby not waking up and feeding? And, you know, my husband and I thought that we had like hit the jackpot. We had this miracle baby who was sleeping so well. We were rock star parents. Of course, this did not last. As soon as she approached 4 months, she started waking up very frequently at night. And then I would find myself awake at night, holding this very awake baby, Googling things like 4-month-old not sleeping and trying to figure out what was going on. Now, this was, of course, the notorious 4-month sleep regression, which is where, you know, sleep takes a massive kind of turn in the way it functions. This coincided with a visit from a family friend from the US, and she gifted me my very first baby sleep book. When I read that book, I mean, it wasn't a great book. It was just a baby sleep book, and there are hundreds of international ones. But it did open my eyes to the fact that there's more to baby sleep than we generally hear about. That there actually is a whole science to it. So I was fascinated. I was absolutely smitten, and I started reading everything I could get my hands on. So I started reading, you know, medical research, books, articles, everything, and of course, observing myself and my baby a lot more closely as well. This was also around the time that I reconnected with a former schoolmate of mine, Neha Bhatt. She had a son about a year older than my daughter, and she was similarly passionate about baby sleep. So she and I kind of decided to co-found Gentle Baby Sleep India on Facebook together, because we felt that this was information that needed to be out there. We felt that sleep was a pain point for most parents. It was something that everyone struggled with. Information was very scarce. It's a very myth-infested space. So any information that one does find online is all like very much from the sleep training universe, and not necessarily scientifically very sound. So we started Gentle Baby Sleep India about 8 years ago. And the rest, as they say, is history, because the group kind of just took off organically. It now has 60,000 members. It's a very active group. We have a fabulous team of admins who run the group voluntarily. I mean, as do Neha and I. Along the way, I had my second daughter, and I decided to study baby sleep formally and get certified so that I could do more with this information. You know, do conversations like this one, and for parents who are looking for one-to-one support. I mean, honestly, I didn't want their only recourse to be going to a sleep trainer. So, you know, I wanted them to have the option of speaking with someone who can talk to them about biologically normal sleep and support them in that way. Neha and I are both originally writers, so it just made sense to encapsulate everything in a book. So Sleeping Like a Baby was born. The book is available on Amazon. It's available as an ebook. It's available as an audiobook, and it's available globally. And we do feel that it kind of is a very handy guide to have for every stage of baby sleep. So anyway, so that is what has brought us here. So I'm going to go through a presentation where I'm going to talk about some of the basic concepts of baby sleep, and then we'll go into a Q&A. So just give me a second while I launch my screen. All right, I hope everyone can see my screen now. Okay, so Zareen, all good, right? You can all see my screen? Yeah, with this presentation? Okay, great. Thanks, Aman. Okay, just trying to fix something. Yeah, all right, great.
All good.
Okay, so the first question is, what is the fuss over baby sleep? Does it even matter? Does anything happen while we're sleeping? Or is sleep just a kind of switched off rest state? So the fact of the matter is that a lot does happen while we're sleeping, and sleep is a very important element of our biology. So good sleep in babies leads to physical growth. The growth hormone is actually secreted during sleep. Good sleep lowers chances of obesity. It protects the heart. It leads to stronger immunity. So cytokines, which are the proteins that are the building blocks of immunity, are actually produced during sleep. So it's essential for good immunity as well. It leads to better attention spans and a greater ability to learn. Neural connections are actually formed during sleep, and higher brain growth. The brain grows during sleep. Naps and night sleep have different functions, so they're not interchangeable. There are, in fact, several studies that have been done with groups of babies, toddlers, preschoolers. These studies have been done multiple times, which have shown that, if there are these two groups all engaged in a new activity, and after that activity, one group takes a nap and the other group does not take a nap, it's been found repeatedly that the group that took the nap processed the learning from that activity a lot better than the group that didn't take the nap. And that's because neural connections are formed during sleep. Short-term memory is converted into long-term memory during sleep. So everything new that was engaged in was actually processed by our brains, by the baby's brains while they were sleeping. So naps are extremely important for development as well. Okay, so sleep is important, but doesn't sleep just happen? Like, what is the fuss about? Won't babies just sleep when they're tired? I think we're all far enough along on this journey to know that this does not happen. Babies don't simply sleep when they're tired. I like to call what we need to do sleep parenting. So parenting doesn't end when our babies close our eyes. There is this kind of belief or this myth that we should put our babies to bed and we should be free after that, and we should be able to go and do other things, whether that's naps or night sleep. But this is not really how it works. Our babies need parenting with regard to sleep as well. So I like to call this sleep parenting. Now, what does sleep parenting involve? It involves, for example, in observing cues, soothing our baby to sleep. Our babies cannot self-soothe or self-settle. They can't just fall asleep on their own. So they need to be soothed by feeding or rocking. For much of the first year, they actually need to be held, at least for their daytime naps while they're sleeping. We have to also help them to go back to sleep when they wake up. Bed sharing, keeping them close at night, meeting their needs and responding. Following the baby's schedule versus expecting the baby to follow our schedule, creating the right sleep environment, and of course, handling social and family pressure with regard to sleep. So these are just some of the ways in which we can't really be passive about sleep, and we need to be proactive about sleep parenting. Sleep is also important because if we handle sleep responsibly, it is an important element in creating a secure attachment with our baby. So if we're looking at our baby's overall emotional health, their psychological health, then meeting their sleep needs and being responsive about it actually plays a huge role in developing that. I strongly advise a baby and child-led approach. So instead of us trying to control their sleep, we're actually observing their cues, we're meeting their needs, and we're supporting them to sleep the best that they can. So, okay, so what can we expect from our baby's sleep? Let's talk first about the first year. Now, I'm sure you've all heard this term, the fourth trimester, right? Now, the fourth trimester, so there are the 3 trimesters of pregnancy, and then the next 3 months are called, the fourth trimester. But in my view, babies need womb-like care much beyond the fourth trimester. So the reason for this is that human babies are actually born very early in the gestation process. When we evolved millions of years ago from walking on 4 legs to walking on 2 legs, when we became bipeds, our pelvis became very narrow. Human babies have a very large head because it houses the large human brain. Now, in order for this large human baby head to fit through the narrow pelvis of a biped, the baby had to be born very early in the gestation process. So scientists theorize that the human pregnancy would actually need to be 18 to 21 months long versus the current 9 months for our babies to be born at the same level of maturity, development, gestation as other mammal babies. Like you may notice, you may have noticed how when a cow has a baby, the calf is within a few hours holding its head up and within a week walking. Whereas our babies hold their heads up at like 3 months or 4 months and they're walking at 13, 14 months. So there's this really long dependent period, right? So scientists say that actually the pregnancy itself would need to be 18 to 21 months long. Now, if you think 18 to 21 months versus the current 9 months, that's actually almost the entire first year. So our babies need womb-like care for almost the entire first year. And what is the womb? The womb is this perfect constant environment, right? Where babies don't feel hunger or thirst or pain or discomfort. Poo and pee is miraculously cleaned up. There is no possibility of being separated from the caregiver. Everything is just safe and secure and perfect. And then when babies come out of the womb, and we have these beautiful nurseries set up for them and lots of people looking at them, for them, it's like being in a Las Vegas casino. It's just it's a lot going on. Now, suddenly they have to ask to be fed. They have, there's a possibility of being put down, of being separated from their caregiver. There's gas pain, there's wind, there's all kinds of things happening now. This is an extremely overwhelming and disconcerting situation for a little baby. And their safest place is in contact with the parent. The closest thing to the womb is not a swaddle, it's not a cradle, it's the body of the parent, right? So they will seek contact with us. They will often sleep best on us or at least beside us when they know that we're close by. Physical contact during sleep is also a survival instinct. So again, imagine millions of years ago, prehistoric babies, right? Like imagine that there are two babies and they've both fallen asleep. And the first baby, the parents put him down under a bush and he doesn't wake up. He just remains asleep. The second baby, the parents put her down under a bush and she immediately wakes up, screams, cries, wants to be picked up, right? Now, which one of these babies would have a higher rate of survival? Which one would be at a greater risk of being picked up by a predator or being left to starve? The second baby would be at a greater risk, and the first baby would have a higher rate of survival. So if you think about this in terms of evolution and survival of the fittest, at every stage, it has been the second baby who has survived. So our babies are all descendants of that second baby. They don't know that they're safe in a home in Delhi or Bangalore or Singapore or Atlanta. They are programmed to exist the way they would in the wild. They have the same survival instincts. So if they are separated from their caregiver, they're in danger. It's an instinct, it's a reflex. It's not a habit. It's something that will immediately kick in and they will not feel safe and hence they will not be able to sleep. So giving our baby the perfect fourth trimester, or in fact, the perfect first year, involves a lot of holding, baby wearing, bed sharing. Some babies enjoy warm baths, a lot of skin to skin, and as far as possible, breastfeeding. Now, where supporting sleep is concerned, the other thing that we need to be very mindful of is sleep cues. Now, very often we're told that we should feed our babies when we see early hunger cues, right? And we're taught about early hunger cues, but we're not taught about early sleep cues, usually. So these are the typical infant sleep cues. So the first phase is things like rubbing eyes, rubbing ears, looking away, looking a little glazed. These are the early sleep cues. When we see early sleep cues, we should actually immediately be picking up our babies and nursing them to sleep or rocking them to sleep. The second stage is when they start yawning, sneezing, frowning, rooting for a feed. By this point, we should already be soothing them to sleep. If we reach stage 3, which is when our babies are fussy, cranky, arching their backs, we're actually late. Those are late sleep cues, right? So why is this important? This is important. I'm going to come to that. We're going to talk about the concept of over-tiredness. But before that, a little bit about circadian rhythms. Circadian rhythms are our body's day-night clock, and they start to form in month 3. So actually somewhere between months 2 and 4, our circadian rhythms form. Before this, babies do sleep at odd hours of the day and night. They don't produce melatonin, which is the sleep hormone. They receive some melatonin in the womb or from breast milk that is produced at night, but they don't make it. So in fact, one of the many benefits of breastfeeding at night is that our breast milk actually contains melatonin at night. So very often, like if a mom is partially expressing milk and partially direct breastfeeding, I usually recommend direct breastfeeding at night because it helps with forming those circadian rhythms and by giving your baby a sense of day and night. Or if a mom is exclusively pumping, I usually tell her to label the milk that she's pumped at night as night milk and the day milk as day milk. But the point is that it's normal for newborns to have like a bedtime of 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. We can't forcibly keep them awake during the day in the hope that they will sleep at night. That will just be counterproductive and backfire. Their circadian rhythms will form at around months 3 and 4. Once they hit that phase, we can support the process by keeping it dim in the house after 6 p.m. and by keeping them in lit environments during the day. If the baby is getting stimulated and distracted and not napping properly during the day, then it's okay to keep them in a dark environment while they're napping and just keep them in lit environments during their wake windows. We can also institute a bedtime routine pretty much from the very beginning. It's just a lovely practice to have. And as our babies do form their circadian rhythms and as they grow older, it's a wonderful time to bond with our babies and also to kind of set a rhythm and indicate to the baby's body that night sleep is coming. So bedtime routines are a wonderful practice. When your baby wakes up after night sleep in the morning, whatever time that might be, 7 a.m. or 12 noon initially, it helps to give our babies 30 minutes or even 15 minutes, if you can, of bright, direct sunlight, right? That helps with the circadian rhythms. After month 4, our baby's circadian rhythms are formed. So then it's kind of important to not be, that's not the priority anymore. So we can move on from that. The baby's circadian rhythm has formed. Okay, now we come to the issue of overtiredness. Guys, if we understand overtiredness, that is half the game won. It is 80% of understanding baby sleep, and it is something that will stand you in good stead for the first 5 years. So for the moment, just ignore, the text on the screen and just hear me out, right? Now, to understand overtiredness, imagine that you and your partner have gone out for dinner one day. And at around 10 o'clock, you start feeling very tired and you say to your partner, I'm really tired. I want to go to bed now. I want to sleep. And your partner says, sure, we'll just have some dessert. We'll say bye to those guys. We'll just head out. Now, by the time you wrap up, you get home, you get into bed, it's midnight. Now, suddenly, you're not feeling tired anymore. That tiredness has vanished. You're feeling quite wired and awake. You're tossing and turning in bed. So what happened here? What happened is that at 10 o'clock, your body signaled to you, I'm tired, I want to sleep now. But for whatever reason, we couldn't allow our body to sleep at that time. So what should the body do? What is the coping mechanism of the body? What the body does is that it releases a stress hormone called cortisol in order to wake us up, right? And this cortisol acts like caffeine. It's like the body is saying, you're tired, here's a cup of coffee, wake up. But imagine that you've had a cup of coffee and 1 hour later you're trying to fall asleep. It would be very difficult. We would toss and turn and fall asleep with great difficulty. And even if we did manage to fall asleep, it would not be deep restorative sleep. It would be restless, fitful sleep. Now, this is exactly how cortisol affects our body. We as adults, we might be able to manage this, whether it's cortisol or caffeine, but babies and toddlers are very, very sensitive to cortisol production. So they have certain wake windows, which means a stretch of time that they can be awake, after which their body starts to produce cortisol. So they need to be asleep before that. So let's say if you have and the wake window is different at every age, 4 months, 6 months, 9 months, 2 years, 5 years, right? Now, let's say we have a 6-month-old baby and, let's say that the wake window is 2 hours long, right? Now, it's important to know that this wake window is not made up by someone, right? It is very much based on your baby's cues and something that any very intuitive or attuned parent would actually organically be following. Like if I lifted you and your baby and put you on an island and said, do it now, and you didn't have a lot of people telling you what to do, you would actually be able to, you would probably organically fall into this rhythm. But anyway, back to real life. So let's say your baby's wake window is 2 hours. What will happen is that at about 1.5 hours, your baby will start to show you early sleep cues. So remember that chart where I showed you early sleep cues, rubbing eyes, rubbing ears, pulling hair, looking a little glazed. These early sleep cues will come for just a few minutes and they're very subtle and they're very easy to miss. Now, if we spot those cues and we immediately pick up the baby, take the baby into a dark and quiet room, nurse the baby to sleep or rock the baby to sleep, the baby will fall asleep easily and will sleep relatively well. Now, if we miss those cues, and they're very easy to miss because they come for just a few minutes, they're very subtle. It could be just that, we didn't know what we were looking for. We happened to go to the bathroom at that time. The 2-hour wake window closes. Now you will suddenly notice that the baby is looking very awake, alert, playful, active, maybe even a little hyperactive. And then you'll say, okay, the baby's not sleepy. The baby is completely fine. And people around you will say, why are you constantly taking the baby to sleep? She's totally okay. She's playing, right? But what has actually happened is that her body has released cortisol, the stress hormone, to wake her up. This is called the second wind. It's the second rush of energy that the body gets from that cortisol production. Now, by the time it's 2.5 hours, the baby will get fussy and cranky. And that is when we usually realize, oh, okay, the baby is tired. But actually, by now, it's too late. We've missed the boat. Your initial gut was actually correct, right? So now when we take the baby to sleep, the baby will not sleep. The baby will be fussy at the breast. It'll take endless rocking for the baby to fall asleep. There'll be crying. There'll be resistance. When the baby does fall asleep, it'll probably be a short nap and the baby will just wake up. And then this cortisol accumulates in the body through the day and it causes night wakings. So this is one of the primary causes of night wakings, right? So it's important to understand this and to manage our baby's sleep and not link night wakings with other things like breastfeeding and all of that. That's all totally barking up the wrong tree. So it's important to understand how over-tiredness works. So this is a chart that we developed on Gentle Baby Sleep India after, through various sources, through, of course, lots of medical documents as well. And also, after having closely observed about 30 babies in the admin team and the thousands of babies on Gentle Baby Sleep India. So we're very proud of this chart and we really feel it's the most accurate thing out there amongst all the baby sleep charts that we've seen. It's available on the group. It's also in the book. So this kind of gives you an indication of how much your baby needs to sleep at every age. how many naps, what are the wake windows. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but for example, you can see that a 5-month-old baby usually takes 4 naps and spends about 4 to 4.5 hours napping. The wake windows are from 45 minutes to 2 hours. Okay, very important tip. The wake window at the beginning of the day is always the shortest, and at the end of the day is always the longest. So the first nap comes very quickly. And this is very often where things go wrong, because we often stretch the first wake window and a lot of cortisol production happens then. So the first wake window is always the shortest, and the one at the end of the day is always the longest. And then the baby sleeps about 11 hours at night. Now, at about 8 months, the baby shifts to 2 naps, and they follow this like really lovely ladder schedule of the 2, 3, 4 pattern. So the first wake window is 2 hours, the next wake window is 3 hours, the next wake window is 4 hours. And there are 2 naps, each of about 2 hours. So the daytime sleep totals about 4 hours, and about 11 hours of sleep at night. So so this is just a kind of glimpse of how sleep changes over the months. The other big change that sleep undergoes as babies grow older are called sleep regressions normally. Sleep regression is just a term for a big developmental leap that your baby goes through. It's a temporary change in their sleep. But baby sleep is anyway not linear. It doesn't just get better, better, better. It does go up and down. But overall, a baby who was kind of sleeping like this will suddenly sleep like this. Like there'll be like a big disruption in their sleep, and they will not sleep well. This is usually because the baby is going through a developmental leap. So your baby is actually growing and is progressing and is developing, but as a result of that, sleep takes a hit and sleep regresses. So sleep regressions usually do pass in about 1 to 3 weeks. So the first big sleep regression, and the only one that I'm going to talk about right now, because it's very critical to understand, is the 4-month sleep regression. This is because our baby's sleep architecture completely changes at this age, and babies develop sleep cycles. Now, all human beings sleep in cycles. So even you and I sleep in cycles. When we fall asleep, we go through 5 different stages of sleep. We go into a drowsy stage, then light sleep, then deep sleep, then deeper sleep, then REM sleep. This process takes us about 2 hours as adults, and this is called one sleep cycle. At the end of every sleep cycle, all of us actually wake up. So even you and I wake up, but we don't realize that we're awake. We will just roll over or fluff up a pillow or, or pull up a blanket, and we'll go back to sleep. And the next morning, we'll have no recollection that we actually woke 3 or 4 times the previous night, but we did. So babies develop these sleep cycles at the age of 4 months. They also have these 5 stages of sleep. Their sleep cycle is about 40 minutes long. Now, they also wake up at the end of every sleep cycle. But the difference is that unlike us, they do not know how to start the next sleep cycle on their own. So they need soothing from us to start the next sleep cycle, right? Which is why suddenly at the age of 4 months or 5 months, we notice that the baby's night wakings have increased, right? They're waking at the end of sleep cycles. Now, what is nature's inbuilt solution to this issue that babies wake at the end of sleep cycles? Because if nature did not have a solution for this, I can assure you that the human race would have been wiped out by now, because people would have stopped procreating. So nature's inbuilt solution is breastfeeding. So even if you look at the animal kingdom, this is how it works. Or if we look at our closest cousins in the animal kingdom, monkeys, gorillas, apes, chimpanzees, you will always find the baby monkey sleeping, clinging to the mother, waking up, suckling, going back to sleep, waking up, suckling, going back to sleep. This is exactly how the human infant is designed. So the human infant is supposed to sleep clinging to the mother, wake at the end of a sleep cycle, suckle, go back to sleep. Wake at the end of a sleep cycle, suckle, go back to sleep. Suckling induces sleep. The baby is not waking up because he or she is hungry. I mean, the baby might be hungry. It's not that they don't need night feeds, they do. But even if the baby was completely full, the primary purpose, I mean, breastfeeding serves many purposes. So one of the primary purposes is actually to induce sleep. So the suckling motion slows the heart rate, it releases sleep hormones, and it induces sleep. And breast milk also contains sleep hormones. So it's supposed to induce sleep. It's literally designed to be a sleep aid. So it's supposed to help us connect sleep cycles. Now, as the baby grows older, the length of the sleep cycle increases gradually. And also the baby slowly develops the ability to connect some of these sleep cycles on his or her own. So like by 10 months, the baby might be connecting about 30% of her sleep cycles on her own, by 2 years, about 60%, and only by 3 to 3.5 years are they consistently connecting all of their sleep cycles on their own and therefore sleeping through the night. Just to note that, of course, if we're not breastfeeding, then you can bottle feed, you can rock the baby, you can soothe the baby in another way. Or even if you are breastfeeding, babies do accept, like, say, rocking by the father, or someday they may even want us to rock. But the point is that the baby needs some form of soothing. Now, a corollary to this is that even if a baby is not breastfeeding, or even if you wean the baby at 1 year, the baby is not going to stop waking up at night, because the baby still has to wake at the end of sleep cycles. And in fact, the only thing we end up doing is losing our magic weapon of helping the baby to go back to sleep, right? And so then we have to soothe in a different way, which means getting up and rocking and walking the baby, or doing something usually much more labor intensive and tiring. So the last kind of growth milestone, sleep milestone they go through are growth spurts, which can mean more than usual nursing. Babies may pull all-nighters. Growth spurts usually pass in 3 or 4 days. Nap transitions. So our babies, as they grow older, as I showed you in that chart, they drop the number of naps that they're taking. Naps actually consolidate. So the baby's wake window increases and the number of naps decrease. So at 5 months, they take 4 naps. At 6 months, they transition to 3 naps. Between 8 and 10 months, they transition to 2 naps. Between 15 and 21 months, they transition to 1 nap. So signs that your baby is hitting a nap transition are things like nap resistance, bedtime resistance, short naps, early morning wakings, active night wakings. Active night wakings are things like, when the baby wakes up and is up for an hour at night and not going back to sleep. So nap transitions also need to be supported and facilitated by the parent. So the thing is that there's actually a lot going on with sleep. It's not something that is simple. It's not something that, oh, okay, if I fix this one thing, sleep will fall into place, or, oh, okay, if I just address this one thing, sleep will work out. If we just understand the whole language of sleep, the whole biology of sleep, then we understand that there are multiple things going on, and there are so many things we can do to support our baby to sleep better. This is, again, a brief chart. It's available on Gentle Baby Sleep India. It's available in the book, which tells you, what are the growth spurts, the sleep regressions, and the nap transitions that the baby goes through at every age. Okay, so here I would actually like to play a quick game. So, keep your chat boxes ready. It's fastest finger first. I'm going to give you 3 statements, and I would like, now 2 of these are true and 1 is a lie. So I'd like you to tell me which one of these you feel is the lie. Babies sleep better and longer when held. Repeatedly trying to put them down will get them used to sleeping on a bed. Babies outgrow the need on their own with time. Any thoughts on which one of these is the lie? If you can put it in your chat box, 1, 2, or 3. Okay, so yes, I think most of you have got it right. 2 is the lie. Babies do sleep better and longer when held. They outgrow this need on their own with time, and repeatedly trying to put them down will not get them used to sleeping on a bed. it will just leave you with a very overtired baby. So holding for naps is extremely normal. It's biologically normal. Your baby wakes up because, as I explained in that anecdote with the two babies, the two prehistoric babies, our babies have a survival instinct that makes them wake up when we put them. Professor James McKenna is an anthropologist. He's the founder of the Mother-Baby Behavioral Sleep Lab at the University of Notre Dame in the US. And he's kind of called the father of biologically normal sleep. Do look up research by him. He has a book called Safe Infant Sleep. He's also written the foreword for our book, so we were very, very honored that he agreed to do that. But I'm just reading out a quote by him. Infants are biologically designed to sense that something dangerous has occurred, separation from the caregiver. They feel through their skin that something is different, such as missing the softness of the mother's touch, the heat of mother's body, the smell of mother's milk, the gentleness of mother's moving, breathing chest, and the feeling of being protected. Infants are alerted because, as far as their own body is concerned, they're about to be abandoned, and it is therefore time to awaken to call the caregiver back, the very caregiver on whose body the infant's survival depends, right? So it's very normal for our babies to wake up when we put them down. It's best to embrace these contact naps. It's not a bad habit. It's just a biological need. Baby wearing is one potential way to deal with it. But otherwise, just holding your baby and sitting back and slowing down is also perfectly okay. If you resist it, it will persist. You will be left with an overtired baby. Enjoy it. It's a brief phase. Get as much help as you can. But, even if you don't have a lot of help, or even if you feel that, you can't really enjoy it, you have a lot to do, even if you're looking at it from the perspective of efficiency and getting things done, I can assure you, if you test this and you hold your baby for an entire week for their naps and ensure that they take good naps, that they're well rested, they're not overtired, and you have a happy baby who you can hand over to someone else during wake windows because the baby is not being clingy or cranky, who has proper long wake windows because she's well rested and who's also sleeping well at night, you will be much more efficient versus a week where you're just kind of putting the baby down and the baby's waking up and is constantly overtired and is constantly cranky and needs constantly to be put back to bed and is also waking very frequently at night. Part of managing naps is also bridging naps. Bridging naps, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but the essence is that there are sleep cycles during naps as well. So babies do wake at the end of those sleep cycles and they need our help to start the next sleep cycle. We have to look at each nap like we're recharging a cell phone. It has to reach 100%. If it gets disconnected at 50%, we have to plug it back in. So, and that can be through nursing, through rocking, but we have to ensure that the baby sleeps the entire amount and wakes up fully recharged. Okay, so here I would like to actually show you a very quick video that kind of demonstrates how human babies naturally sleep. So just give me a second. This is a video of a gorilla baby. Just give me a second here. So you see how this mama gorilla knows exactly what to do, right? She's holding her baby while the baby is sleeping. She knows she has to keep the baby close while the baby is sleeping. Now the baby is nursing. So nobody is going to tell this mama gorilla to not hold her baby or not nurse her baby because it's a bad habit. I mean, she would send that person flying. So is nursing to sleep a bad habit? Speaking of bad habits, right? Is your baby waking up because we're nursing to sleep? So as I already kind of mentioned a few times, this is not true. Nursing to sleep is the biological norm. It's how nature intended our babies to sleep. For the first year and beyond, night feeds also have nutritive importance. The suckling motion helps induce sleep. Breast milk also contains sleep hormones. Babies also feed well when they're asleep, while they might be very distracted when they're awake. Um, Nursing creates comfort and security. It's the perfectly designed sleep solution. So it's like a package deal, right? Where you're actually, I mean, it's actually addressing multiple needs that help the baby sleep. Babies don't form habits. They don't manipulate and remember that if I do this, I get this. Their neocortex, their thinking brain is not developed. They just follow their biological programming. Alternate caregivers can rock and walk the baby to sleep. Babies are very good at associating different methods of soothing with different caregivers. But for the mom, for a breastfeeding mom, nothing is easier or more convenient than nursing to sleep. It's much less labor intensive than rocking, walking, or preparing bottles. Mom can nurse lying down and barely needs to wake up. It leads to much more undisturbed and continual sleep. So very often when I'm supporting moms who are nursing in the sideline position at night, if I ask them, how many times did the baby wake up at night? They have no idea. They're like, I don't know, it could have been twice, it could have been 8 times. I literally have no idea because, the mom was sleeping through the entire night. And of course, if you do, all that sleep management of actually ensuring the baby's not overtired and there's no cortisol in the body, then the wakings are anyway reduced at night. Is bed sharing safe? Yes, it's absolutely safe. I'm not going to spend time on this except to say, please look up the Safe Sleep 7, which are some very commonsensical rules about, not, having a super soft mattress or extra pillows or blankets and, having a safe sleep surface. Neither parent should be intoxicated, etc. So it is completely safe. It's also completely natural. So in India, of course, bed sharing is the cultural norm. In many countries where bed sharing is the cultural norm, like Japan, SIDS rates are actually seen to be the lowest. It boosts the breastfeeding relationship. Mothers report more sleep. Babies and mothers sleep better. The low calorie composition of human milk means that babies need frequent feedings, and bed sharing facilitates that. Again, amazing research on this by Professor James McKenna and other people like that, anthropologists like that, which have shown that so our bodies actually incubate our babies, and babies develop in close proximity to us. So infant responses to maternal smells, movements, and touch reduce crying. They help the baby to regulate breathing with stress absorption, absorption of calories, oxygenation, and much more. And hey, it's normal, mammals bed share. What about jhulas and cradles? I do not recommend having your baby sleep in rockers, thulis, thotils, jhulas, cradles. There are many, many reasons for this. Again, without going into too much detail, firstly, the curved posture blocks the airway. Babies don't go into deep sleep. In motion sleep is not restorative. Sleeping in jhulas with that motion and with that posture also attunes the nervous system to sleep only with that posture and that movement. And jhulas can be extremely difficult to wean while also leading to very bad quality sleep. So even though a baby might seem to be sleeping long stretches in these devices, the baby's not actually going into deep sleep. And of course, it also affects the breastfeeding relationship, and it comes in the way of natural practices like bed sharing and nursing to sleep and holding for naps and things that are actually required for our baby to develop a healthy sleep biology. Okay, should your baby sleep in darkness? Again, a quick round of two truths and a lie. So I am going to again give you three statements, and one of these is a lie while two are true. So in the chat box, fastest finger first, could you tell me which one of these is the lie? Babies can develop the troublesome habit of sleeping only in darkness. After month 3, babies are easily stimulated by light. Darkness helps babies nap better during the day after month 3. Any thoughts on which one of these is the lie? Okay. Which one is the lie? So actually, one is the lie, because babies don't form habits and they actually need darkness to sleep well after their circadian rhythms are formed. And after they develop an awareness that makes them very easily stimulated during the day. So pitch darkness during your baby's daytime naps is a magic trick. If you haven't done it as yet, it is game changing. Please do it. If so, during their daytime naps, babies are very easily stimulated and very easily distracted. They may finish one sleep cycle and not be able to go on to the other sleep cycle. The battery will remain not 100%, at 50% recharge. Your baby will be overtired. Also, your baby's wake windows will stretch because your baby will resist sleep if there is light and visibility. However, if there's darkness, your baby will fall asleep at that early stage of tiredness and will take longer, more restorative naps. Bridging will be easier. This is again not a habit. It is a biological need that the baby has for us to remove extra stimulation around. So it's something that leads to very, very good naps, and it reduces overtiredness and it helps your baby sleep a lot better at night. Moving quickly on to the toddler years, the same principles apply. Toddler sleep cues look a little bit different because there can be lack of engagement, general slowing down, jerky movements, clumsiness, losing interest in toys. Late cues are things like tantrums, hyperactivity, huge resistance to going to bed. So, like with our babies, our toddlers also need us to observe for early sleep cues and observe the wake windows. Now, babies drop to one nap between 15 and 21 months, and they drop that last nap between 3 and 5 years. So, if a 2.5-year-old would have a 4.5 hour wake window before the one nap, and then they would have a 2.5 to 3 hour nap, and then a 6.5 hour wake window after that nap. Whenever the baby finally drops the nap, the baby would sleep 12 hours at night. So, for example, sleep at 7 p.m. and wake up at 7 a.m. But the nap drop process is very long. It takes about 6 months to settle. So, there is a period from 2 years to about 4 years, or whenever your baby drops that nap, which is very tricky, where that getting that nap in requires perfect ingredients, right? So you need the pitch dark room, you need music to manage their very active minds. You need the right wake windows and an early nap. The nap should not be happening 7 hours after the baby wakes up in the morning. It should be happening at that 4 to 5 hour mark, depending on the exact age of the baby. Your baby still needs an active soothing method. So if we expect our baby to just lie down next to us and fall asleep, or that we can just pat the baby to sleep, it won't happen. They still need nursing or walking or a little bit of rocking to fall asleep. They need a pre-nap routine, just like the bedtime routine. So if we don't have this stuff in place, then it stands to reason that our baby's nap is going to be very tricky, and we will be stuck in the situation where we feel that our 2-year-old is actually ready to drop the nap, whereas the 2-year-old is definitely not ready to drop the nap and is going to be very fussy and cranky without it and is not going to sleep well at night. That nap is important for a 2-year-old. It may even be important for a 3-year-old, right? Like between my two daughters, one dropped the nap at 3 years, one dropped it at 5 years. So there's a huge individual variation in this, and we do need to support our toddlers to take that daytime nap for as long as needed. What are the signs that your baby is ready to drop the nap? Your baby will be between 3 and 5 years old. Your baby's wake windows will have expanded and your baby's bedtime will be very late. So your baby's actually not clocking enough sleep in the day. Your baby's resisting the nap and resisting bedtime, even if you have all those other ingredients in place. If you don't have those ingredients in place, then of course the first step is putting those ingredients in place and then seeing how your baby reacts. But if you do have those ingredients in place and your baby is still resisting, then it might be time to drop the nap. Or your baby takes a very short nap, even though it's a pitch dark room, you're bridging the nap, you're supporting the nap in every way, but your baby just takes a short nap, like a 45-minute nap, no matter what, then it might be wiser to drop the nap and do the 12-hour night sleep. Your baby might have active night wakings or early morning wakings. How can you help the baby? If your baby, hold on to the nap for as long as you can. Don't be in a rush to drop it. If you do skip the nap, institute a quiet time in place of that nap to recharge. Shift your bedtime super early. Like at this stage, it's possible your baby might even have a 6 p.m. bedtime. Ensure that your night sleep room is also pitch dark so that if your baby has a 6 or 7 p.m. bedtime and suddenly tries to wake up at 8:30 or 9, you're able to bridge that sleep and soothe your baby and keep your baby asleep through the night. There will be many months, like 6 months, of your baby taking a nap on some days and not taking a nap on other days. That's completely normal. If your baby wakes early on one day, like let's say you didn't do the nap, baby went to bed at 6 p.m. Now, on many days, they'll actually sleep 12 and a half hours and wake up at 6 a.m. or 6:30 a.m. But let's say you have a day when the baby wakes up at 5. Do a nap on that day. So like do a 9 or 10 a.m. nap, even if that means skipping school. Because if you do that nap, see, if your baby wakes up at 5 a.m., what are your options, right? You can't do a 5 p.m. bedtime. I mean, you can, but that usually doesn't work out. The other option is that let's say your child is going to school, you do a 2 p.m. nap, your baby will end up sleeping till 4 or 5 p.m. Another small note, I don't recommend waking a baby up ever because it interferes with their internal sleep rhythms. There are other ways to manage schedules versus waking the baby up. So if your baby sleeps till 5 p.m. and then they have a 6 or 7 hour wake window after that, you'll end up with like an 11 p.m. bedtime. And it just throws things off. However, if you just skip school on that day, if your child is going to school, and after a 5 a.m. wake up, you do a nap at say 10 a.m., your baby will wake up at 12 noon or so, around that age, and then you can easily do a 7 p.m. bedtime again. So you're back on track, right? And of course, avoid a 4 p.m. car drive or anything that is going to make your baby take a nap at 4 p.m. If your baby is in the process of dropping naps. Night terrors and nightmares are again a concern that shows up in the toddler phase. The important point, babies don't dream, they don't have nightmares. So if your baby is waking up crying, if you have a baby who's a 1-year-old or 1.5-year-old who's waking up crying at night, it's not due to a nightmare. It could be over-tiredness, the need to feed, or separation anxiety, but it's not a nightmare or night terrors. That happens during the toddler years. Bedtime battles also are a feature of the toddler years. They do kick in at 17 or 18 months. And, it's very much a feature of the toddler years. So there are some things we can do. Rule out scheduling issues. Ensure your baby is not overtired or undertired. Know that there is some normal toddler limit testing behavior, just like your toddler is going to resist, putting on her shoes or, wearing that t-shirt instead of that one, there is going to be some resistance to bedtime as well. They need a solid bedtime routine. They need dinner to be served like 2 hours before their sleep time so that they can have, a good bedtime routine after that. They might need 45 minutes of soothing, like nursing, rocking in order to fall asleep. This is very normal, like sleep onset, which means that time taken to fall asleep is quite long in the toddler years. It's very often about 45 minutes. Physical activity in the evenings can help a lot. No sugar or chocolate in the evenings. No screen time for at least 2 hours before bedtime. Please note that the recommendation is 0 screen time for all babies under 2 years. And then it can be a gradual increase to about a maximum of 1 hour a day by 5 years. So do keep that in mind. But even if you have an over 2-year-old who is getting some screen time, there should not be any screen time for 2 hours before bedtime. Once your bedtime routine has started and you're in the room, don't allow your baby to leave the room. And by that, I don't mean jail your baby or lock the door. I just mean that their connection with you and your bedtime routine with them should be so engaging and so like full of connection and so solid that there is no like, hearing dada dadi outside and running out of the room, or hearing some TV on outside and running out of the room, or just, just try to prevent that, because if your baby does that, then it's like a hard reset. These are all toddlers have a lot of FOMO. And so these are all, some of you don't have toddlers yet, but these are all very real issues when one has a toddler. Do have a lovely bedtime routine. Talk to your child about his or her day. Address any fears or anxieties he or she may have. Do bedtime reading. Bedtime reading is something you can start from birth itself. Do some calming activities like coloring, talking, etc. Okay, wrapping up now, just a quick note on sleep training. Sleep training is a very loaded term. So everything that we've talked about in terms of helping our babies manage sleep and sleep schedules, this is not sleep training. This is just sleep parenting or sleep management, right? Sleep training is a specific technical term that refers to practices where we leave our baby to cry, or we don't respond to our baby, or we try to make our baby self-soothe or become independent. It's a practice that has been very popular in the West and in some parts of the world for about a century or over a century now. So here's another round of 2 truths and a lie, and then we'll talk more about it. So which one of these 3 statements is a lie? Learning to connect sleep cycles is a developmental milestone. Toddlers can be taught, or babies and toddlers can be taught to self-soothe, and teaching them is a parental duty and rite of passage. Sleep training causes emotional and psychological damage. Which one of these is the lie, in your view? Okay, so this is the lie. Learning to connect sleep cycles is a developmental milestone. Babies cannot be taught to self-soothe, and we don't need to do that. It happens on its own. It's a milestone like any other, just like rolling over or crawling or walking or talking. Learning to connect sleep cycles is also a milestone. Sleep training is associated with emotional and psychological damage. Sleep training is known by all sorts of things like cry it out, controlled crying, the pick up, put down method, the shuffle method, the chair method, responsive settling. I mean, it sounds kind of like harmless, right? Like when you hear responsive settling or things like that. Break sleep associations, break bad habits, put your baby down drowsy but awake, teach your baby to sleep. So, sleep trainers are becoming, more and more, creative in the way that they're pitching this process. But the simple test is that if anyone asks you to not respond to your baby, right? Like, or to break a sleep association or break a habit, run for the hills, right? Like that is a sign that this is not a responsive method. It is not respecting the biology of the baby. And we're trying to do something that the baby's biology is not actually ready for. The whole idea is behind these methods is that we're encouraging babies to self-soothe or self-settle by withholding parental soothing. So we're saying, I'm not going to nurse the baby, or I'm not going to rock the baby because I want the baby to just lie down and go to sleep on his or her own. The assumption is that there's something wrong with your baby seeking comfort, and there's something that needs to be fixed. This is unscientific, as our babies do not have the ability to self-regulate or self-soothe or self-settle because of our underdeveloped neocortex, our underdeveloped thinking brain. So there are studies that have shown that sleep trained babies, so they still wake at night. Even a group of sleep trained babies, if you track their sleep, they're still waking at night. If you test their cortisol level, their stress level, it's still very high, but they are not calling out to the parent. Okay, so there is some research now that is showing that this can affect your baby's attachment or security. There are no bad habits. There is only yes, absolutely. Thank you, Karan, for that. Gabor Mate is, brilliant. So do look up things by Gabor Mate, his book, The Myth of Normal, or, just there are so many talks by him on YouTube, so many podcasts with him. He's an addiction researcher. He was a physician who spent years researching addiction, and he now studies trauma in society. And he talks about how a lot of these early parenting practices, of which sleep training is one, he calls it out, but also many others, which promote separation between the parent and the child, lead to trauma and can cause later issues like depression, anxiety, addiction, and a lot of the kind of mental health issues that we're facing in the world today. So there are no bad habits, only biological needs that change with time. Sleep training can be very stressful for both parents and babies. It often needs to be repeated. So it's sleep training is like a crash diet. So you see this image of this baby, this very swaddled baby with a pacifier in the mouth, sleeping alone in a crib, which is kind of like seeing this picture of the size zero model, with this perfect figure in the media. And we feel like, okay, we should want this, like we should have this. So the only way to get that size zero figure is by going on this crash diet and basically developing an eating disorder, right? Similarly, the only way to get that other image of that baby is to undergo sleep training, right? Now, like a crash diet, this is not a long lasting solution. So you'll do a crash diet, and 1 month later, you'll put all that weight back on unless you continue in that way. So sleep training, and in the process, you'll damage your body a lot. And your mental health. Similarly, with a baby, if you do the sleep training once, it's not that it's once and done. 1 month later or 2 months later, you need to do it again. And every time you do it, it's not good for your baby or you, for that matter. And the reason you have to do it again and again is because it's not natural. So your baby's natural self is going to resurface regularly. So, and please be very aware, because this is a multi-billion dollar industry worldwide. So all your Google searches and all your conversations, with various peers or doctors even, are going to lead to this, somehow going to kind of throw the sleep training at you. So you need to be very cognizant as a parent of what the red flags are, so that you don't get sucked into this or scammed into this. Okay, that's it for now. If you'd like more information, please join the Facebook group Gentle Baby Sleep India. It's a peer-to-peer support group. All are welcome. You can follow me on Instagram on gentlebabysleep.counseling. I share a lot of content there as well. If you would like to speak with me one-to-one, you can go to my website, askhd.in. There's a lot of content there as well. You can also book an appointment with me. And of course, as I mentioned, Sleeping Like a Baby is available in bookstores or online. Thank you so much for listening, and let's take some questions now. Zareen, I think you're on mute.
The questions that were in the chat first.
Okay.
I can read them out to you if you'd like, because there were a few that were further up as well too.
Okay. Yeah.
So the first one that came in was from Sanya. Doesn't co-sleeping, bed sharing increase the risk of SIDS? I know you did touch upon that, but if you want to touch upon it again.
No, it doesn't, Sanya. This is one of the big myths around co-sleeping and bed sharing. In fact, it's ironic, right? Because another word for SIDS is actually cot death, right? And that's literally referring to a baby who's sleeping in a cot. In fact, countries like a lot of Southeast Asian countries like Japan, Hong Kong, where co-sleeping and bed sharing is actually the cultural norm. They report some of the they report some of the lowest rates of SIDS. So, and in fact, there is some research that shows that breastfeeding and bed sharing babies actually have a much lower risk of SIDS. So there's a lot of material on this because there are some studies that have shown a connection between co-sleeping and SIDS, but they're very flawed. For example, they don't account for things like where were the parents sleeping? Because very often what happens is that parents fall asleep on a couch with the baby, or which is not a safe sleep environment, or the parent smokes or has or is intoxicated. So in fact, people like Professor James McKenna have articles on this and articles on the flaws in these studies and how there's actually no risk. So, in fact, even at the NHS now, the focus is on educating parents on safe bed sharing and safe co-sleeping versus banning. Like earlier in many countries, look, there's a whole cultural history here. So there were certain things that happened in Europe with industrialization where kind of bed sharing became less popular and not the cultural norm. Um, and then there were like these bunch of male white doctors in the early 20th century who made all these totally unscientific claims about bed sharing. But all of that is now being highly, highly questioned and debated. And, so even like, so a lot of these countries are now revising their recommendations, where earlier they would say things like don't bed share. Now they say, okay, this is how you should safely bed share, because the whole idea is that parents do end up bed sharing and then they do it unsafely, like falling asleep on a recliner or falling asleep on a couch because they're so exhausted with the constant waking up, going to a cot, constant waking up, going to a cot, right? So this is very much not true. Bed sharing is natural. It's how humans have slept for millions of years. It is not associated with SIDS. There's ample research out there to show that. I mean, we can share it with you later. It's all over the place actually. So if you just look up like James McKenna bed sharing, or look at like Helen Ball, she's the founder of the Durham Infancy Center, and she advises NHS on things like bed sharing. So just look up some of these names and say bed sharing and safe bed sharing, and all of this research will pop up. But in a nutshell, no, it's not associated with this. So
that's absolutely correct, because I know, like, even for example, like with NHS, like every few years they change their rules, where it used to be place the baby on the belly first, sleeping on the belly, and then it was after a couple of years, oh, belly sleeping is unsafe, put the baby on the back, and then now it's come back. So I think we need to follow our gut instincts and do what is best for baby and ourselves as well. So the next question is, Lucy, at 10 months, approximately how many night wakings are considered too many?
So it's a huge range. I would say that so it's a huge range. Is there an echo? Okay. All right. So at 10 months, I would say that there could be some babies who are waking only twice, but there could be some babies who are waking 7 to 8 times as well. And okay, so here's what I would say. I would say that if your baby's waking up 4 times or 5 times on an average, it's okay. In an 11-hour period, 4 wakings are absolutely fine. There could be some teething nights or growth spurts where your baby's actually waking up more. So those nights will always be there. It's not that, that is an end. So those will, of course, be considered exceptions. But on average, usually 4 to 5 wakings are okay. It could be better, like it could be lower. It could be 2 to 3 as well. And on some nights, especially like when your baby's teething or your baby's overtired, your baby could be waking up more as well, like 7 to 8 times. But usually then that can be addressed. And it can be, well, teething passes, overtiredness can be addressed, and it can be brought to about 4 to 5 wakings, 4 even. Yeah.
Thank you. The next question, Dr. Manisha Mohan has two questions. Her first one is, my baby is 6 months now. Since 2 months, she started the long night sleep, started with 5 to 6 hours and now 7 to 9 hours. Is it normal?
Okay, so I just have one question. I mean, it's normal, but it's very unusual. So I would just like want to rule out certain other things. Like, for example, is the baby by any chance sleeping in a cradle or a swing? And are these long stretches happening in a cradle or a swing? Or could it be that the baby is grossly overtired and therefore is crashing out and going into shutdown sleep and therefore not waking up? Because it's unusual. Like at 2 months, yes, it's possible. 2 to 3 months, as I mentioned, there is this brief golden phase before the 4 month sleep regression where the baby does sleep long hours. But if it's also happening at 6 months, it's unusual. Um, so Manisha, do you have any thoughts on that? Like, is there a cradle involved? Is the baby sleeping? Like, is the baby taking 3 naps totaling 4 hours, sleeping 11 hours overall at night? If not, then this might need to be looked into.
Hi, am I
Hi,
audible?
Manisha. Yeah.
Ideally, she sleeps. We do a co-sleeping only. It's on bed sharing. She never
Hmm.
liked the cradle.
Okay,
Uh,
great.
I was gifted a hammock, and she just couldn't take it. I know somehow she doesn't like heat. Uh, Seemed
No, so it's
something
great
similar
that
to
she
me.
doesn't sleep in the cradle. That's lucky for you.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so she has been gaining weight well, and the growth is fine. I did discuss this with the pediatrician. So they said that it's fine to just, go with the on-demand feeding and let her sleep the way she is. Don't disturb the sleep pattern.
Hmm.
Initially it was like 5 hours, 6 hours and all when she turned 2 months. Sometimes in between I've tried feeding her. Sometimes she dream feeds, sometimes she doesn't. She's like completely logged off. Like, so like I had the same question, is she overtired, like you said, but I
Hmm.
couldn't get an answer to this, like as to why the night sleep was there, because in the day also she sleeps well. She had her
Hmm.
regular patterns, and I knew which time of the day she sleeps and all of that. And that was going fine. There was no change in those patterns.
Hmm.
Uh, and now
Well,
it is becoming a little longer. So I'm a little worried because, eventually in another 20 days, I have to join work. And I am constantly having that worry about my supply, whether it can get compromised, with the long hours. We usually say, long hour gap can impact your supplies. It works on demand and supply.
after your baby's regained birth weight, and if your overall weight gain is okay, we're just supposed to feed on demand. So it's all right if your baby is not waking up and not asking for a feed. Um, I mean, I wouldn't worry about that. I mean, just do look into whether the baby is sleeping enough overall, because it is about 15 hours total at 6 months. So if she is sleeping 15 hours and if she just happens to be miraculously sleeping these long stretches, just enjoy it. It's okay. It may or may not last. It's all right. Don't worry
Yeah, like
about it.
currently for the last 2 weeks, I have seen her sleep like maybe like this time she sleeps for about say 1.5, 2 hours. And in the afternoon, like somewhere between 3ish or something, she again for another 2 or 3 hours she sleeps. After that, sometimes she falls asleep like a power nap type 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then she's up again. Sometimes she's all charged up after that. Sometimes she's all, irritated. It's very confusing sometimes. So uh, I am a little worried that that was the only thing that was bothering me.
So Manisha, it actually does sound to me like she's a little overtired. So I think you should look into the schedule. If even after looking into the schedule, if she's taking these long stretches of sleep, it's okay. But it sounds to me like she doesn't have a schedule and she doesn't have much of a routine. So at 6 months, as I said, they take 3 solid naps totaling 4 hours plus 11 hours of night sleep. It sounds to me like she doesn't have 11 hours of night sleep. And
See, she goes, the night is the best sleep that she gets. She, once she's
no, but
out,
how many hours?
So
Is
if
it?
she sleeps, say around 12 o'clock-ish is what she usually sleeps, 11 or 12 ke beech mein, and then she's up only after 7 o'clock,
Yeah, that's only 7 hours of sleep.
7, 8 hours. So basically that's what, unless she's up only after I wake up. Sometimes I'm up
Yeah,
at 7, 8,
but then
so it
she's crashing
depends.
out because she's overtired, because
Okay,
she's not getting enough sleep. She needs
okay,
15 hours of sleep in 24 hours. And it
okay.
sounds to me like she's getting 11 hours of sleep in 24 hours.
Oh, no, no.
So
This is only the night sleep I'm talking about.
I
Then in
know,
between,
7 to 8 hours of night sleep, right? 7 to 8 hours of night sleep.
it's about 8 to 9 now, 8 to 9 hours of sleep. But yeah, in the day overall, so maybe I'll check on that schedule, like you said, maybe in through the 24 hours, I'll check how many hours she's sleeping then.
Just log it, log the sleep, like note it down. Because at 6 months, usually babies' wake windows are 1.5 to 2 hours 20, 2 hours 40. So first one is 1.5, then 2 hours 20, then 2 hours 40 minutes. They take 3 naps, totaling 4 hours of sleep, and they sleep 11 hours at night. So if she's sleeping 7 to 8 hours at night, even if the average is 8 hours, it's very low, which is why she's crashing out. So it's just that, I mean, it's very unusual for a 6-month-old to not be waking up frequently to feed. So hence, I have to do this investigation to figure out why is that happening, right? And then it will be happening because your baby is overtired. And in that case, it is possible that your baby is not feeding enough because she's not waking up because she's crashing out of tiredness, not because she's not actually hungry or not doesn't actually need to feed or that she is actually sleeping so well. So that's what you'll need to look into. It sounds to me like you need to start logging her sleep and see if she's hitting 15 hours in 24 hours or not. Right. This behavior is showing. If it was a situation where she's sleeping 14, 15 hours in 24 hours and she's still sleeping these long stretches, then she's just a little unicorn baby who's sleeping long stretches. But it should not be that she's crashing out from exhaustion and therefore not waking up. But it sounds to me like that's what's happening right now with her. And then that is not good for her and not good for the breastfeeding relationship also, if that's the reason that it's happening. So that needs looking into. So Karan says, having coffee and tea also disturbs the cycle. Exposure to television and lights late at night. Yes, it does. It does. Coffee and tea, like 1 cup a day or 2 cups a day, usually are okay. But yeah, excessive caffeine intake can disturb sleep. And exposure to TV and lights late at night. Well, TV, there should be no exposure up till 2 years to a baby. But yes, even lights late at night can affect the circadian rhythm. That's right. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Manisha, for your question. I'm going to hand it over to Simran, who will be going over her story and sharing that with us.
Hi, Himani. So actually, I want to share my experience with baby sleeping. When Mila Nanta, she's now 1.5 years old. When she was 5 months old, she suddenly stopped sleeping. Prior to that, I had people ask me if she was sleeping well, and she was sleeping beautifully. And I said, no, it's not a problem. She just falls asleep when she's tired, which was giving me a lot of time to work because I am, or at least I used to be, a bit of a workaholic. So at 5 months, baby, she's napping, I'm working. That's really how things were until she hit 5 months and stopped sleeping. 6 weeks into her not sleeping through the night, well, not through the night, but a lot of waking up at night. 6 weeks into that, I was a basket case because I was still working in the day. I work from home, but I run a boutique hotel, so it's very hands-on. 6 weeks into us not sleeping at all, I felt like I was losing my marbles, just was not able to function finding myself crying, feeling overwhelmed, completely helpless, with no one really honestly having any proper suggestions. I got a lot of, you'll have to let her cry and then she'll get used to it. We were co-sleeping at that time, and I knew instinctively that letting her cry was not something I was going to do. This is when my cousin, who runs a school in Delhi, introduced me to Himani. So after my first conversation with Himani, I understood a lot about how, which I think Himani explained to everyone, about how children are designed to feel safe, and what they're really looking for in those first few months is safety, security, the closeness of the mother. So I signed up for 40 days of community support, which basically was really helpful, because it would mean when Mila would wake up, I would message Himani on WhatsApp and say she woke up at this time. So then Himani would calculate her next sleep. So through the day, I was being told when Mila should sleep, which suited me just fine, because I was getting a chance to observe now what was happening, and also having someone who knew tell me how to do it. In the beginning, I hit a lot of resistance. I found that my first biggest resistance was to holding Mila and sleeping. I just couldn't understand. I couldn't understand how I had to just be sitting there holding her, and that this was the best thing for her. I definitely did not feel like this was the best thing for me. But every time I put her down, she cried and she woke up. So so I actually asked Himani. I had a one sort of breakdown day, and I said, I can't do this. Why do I have to hold her? She sent me some articles, which I still save and I still share with a lot of people. And one article explained things from the child's perspective, which really hit me. And that day, and this is what I've noticed with child rearing in general, that when you sort of surrender to whatever is really difficult in that moment, some sort of breakthrough happens, which I found lends to my evolution as a person. So that day when I read that article, which was really about how being compassionate to your child at this time when they're so young will lead to your child knowing how to be compassionate to other kids when they're older. And for some reason, this really hit me, because it's we want to raise a compassionate generation, don't we? So I decided that I would definitely sit with her and I would sleep. And what I found when I did that, when I was holding her and when I was sleeping, she was sleeping way better, like this deep sleep. And I experienced my own resistance to this doing, to always needing to get up and do something, clean the room when she's sleeping, go out and work a bit when she's sleeping, make some phone calls. So for the first time in about 8 months, being a new mom, I finally started to rest and finally learned how to rest. So what were the other things that I felt were really helpful about the sleep therapy? Happy child. Now 1.5 years later, I have a very, very happy child. She looks at me and she says, Mama, Nini, if I missed her sleep time, she knows, because we're on a schedule. The schedule shifts a little bit according to how well she slept at night. If she, woke up at 4 a.m. instead of 2 a.m., then the sleep adjusts a little bit. But she takes a nap every day, which started, she's now 1.5. So it started with a 1.5 hour nap a day, and now it has become a 2.5 hour nap a day and 11 hours of sleep at night. She does still feed and sleep, which is something I'm going to make an appointment with Himani about. But what I really felt was that the putting my baby on a sleep schedule created rest for me, real rest for her, much more happiness for her. She almost never cries. I've had people tell me, how is your baby happy all the time? And my answer is because she's not tired. I mean, we're all cranky when we're tired. So really understanding her sleep has been a game changer. And I really learned the power of slowing down. This has been my experience with sleep therapy.
Thanks so much, Simran. I can't believe Mila is now 1.5 years. How time flies. Gosh, I remember those days so well. And You were fabulous and so intuitive. I know this is a struggle that a lot of parents have. And honestly, I had it too. Like I myself couldn't understand why my baby was waking up every time I put her down. Something like making the room pitch dark is something I resisted to high heaven. My husband had to shove it down my throat, and literally be the one like putting up all the chart paper on the windows and all of that. I still resist it sometimes. But the thing is, but as you said, like very often, if you just let go and you just submit and you just do what your baby is clearly responding to, the whole thing just kind of starts to flow, and it just works. And so thank you so much for sharing that journey, because that first person account, because there can be so many doubts, right? Like when we're going down this road, it can be that you get so much information from, so many parents come to me and say, with my first child, I didn't do any of this stuff, and I had so many doubts, and I listened to everyone around me, and I want to do it differently with my second baby. And then the whole experience is so different with the second baby. I mean, it's like breastfeeding. I think sleep is one of those areas that is just so fraught with conflicting views, and we ourselves feel so just caught up in a lot of these myths, and we don't listen to our babies and we don't listen to ourselves. So I think, yes, I mean, you did a fabulous job of being attuned to Mila and so intuitive. And I mean, the information I gave you, you just absorbed it and then you made it your own, and you just followed your intuition after that.
Yeah, this is actually a point that I wanted to make, which was that after doing those 40 days, a lot of the information you were giving me helped me bolster my own instincts about it. And what happened after the 40 days was I just got it. I understood when she needed to sleep. I understood when she was cranky and why it was. And all our needs, Mila and my needs, really tuned to each other in those 40 days. So even today, when she's upset, I really know what it's about, because it taught me how to slow down, and it taught me how to trust my own instincts, and it taught me to read my baby's signs. So these three things have helped us today. 2 times, if you recall, in the last year, I've reached out saying, oh, I think we need a session. And within 2 days, all those instincts take over. I understand the situation and we move to the next phase completely naturally. So we haven't needed to make that time. So that's actually been the most valuable thing, to be able to trust my own instincts and to be able to understand what my baby is trying to communicate and what she needs. So yeah, it was really a life-changing experience. I talk about sleep therapy all the time on all the baby groups I'm on.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for spreading the word. That's what we want. Like, that's why we have the Facebook group, and, that's why we have forums like this. The whole idea is just spreading the word and getting the information out there, to parents who need it.
Thank you so much, Simran, for sharing. We'll open it up to question and answer. So if anyone has any questions, either feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand and we'll put you in the queue to have a chance to ask anything to Himani.
I'd love to ask something if no one else has a question, because I have a baby nap coming up and I never miss them, so I'll have to go soon now. When can I stop night feedings? Because what happened recently was I noticed she was slowly stopping night wakings, night feedings on her own. And so I got really excited and thought I should push the process. So for one night, I asked my partner to pick her up and take her away and rock her, and she resisted that greatly. So, and then started waking up even more at night to feed. So I realized this is not the way. And so I wanted to know that, because I would love a little extra sleep.
So the thing is that the child-led approach, the baby-led approach is, of course, to not stop and to just go with the flow, right? And the natural age of the natural age of a baby child self-weaning from breastfeeding is between 3 and 7 years. So so if we don't intervene in the process, then babies continue to nurse through the day a few times, and maybe also at night, up till 3, 4, years, right? And of course, even if we want to do a more parent-led weaning, it's generally easier after 3 years, because they're just more rational, and it's just, and they're also by 3 to 3.5 years, they're also sleeping through the night. So just to also put it out there that stopping breastfeeding at night is not going to lead to longer stretches of sleep at night, because sleep is developmental, right? So if the baby is not connecting sleep cycles, then we might not be feeding, but we'll have to get up and rock and walk the baby to sleep, right? Or do something else with the baby to sleep. Also, if the baby is not ready for weaning, then, and usually at this age, a baby wouldn't be ready for weaning as such, then it's usually a very uphill task to even do it, like in a parent-led way. So just to, again, give you an example, my first daughter self-weaned while I was pregnant with my second daughter, which can happen sometimes. And she was 2.5 at that point, and she was not sleeping through the night. So she did stop breastfeeding because she self-weaned, but she was still having night wakings. And in fact, it became a very tough situation where my husband and I would have to wake up multiple times and walk and rock her to sleep. I mean, there was like a period of a few months that was really bad. Like my husband would have to like take her for a drive in the middle of the night because she would not fall asleep any other way. And we had lost our magic weapon of breastfeeding. Conversely, my other daughter, who breastfed, way past 4 years, at 5 years, till 5 years or so, she started sleeping through the night at 3 years. So she would breastfeed like at bedtime or in the morning or whenever she felt like it, but she was not waking up for feeds. So what I'm saying is that there's actually no link between the act of breastfeeding and sleep stretches or sleeping through the night. Now, if we want to, we can develop some parallel methods where, instead of so usually it does start with, say, naps, right? Like another caregiver helping with naps. It can also be the father stepping in with some of those night wakings. So I know many couples, and we did it with my first daughter, not so much with my second, and where one waking the mom nurses, the second waking the father is walking the baby to sleep. So that is something that can slowly be developed in terms of having a parallel method. To answer your question, the easiest approach, the submitting to the process approach, is to just, go with the flow and let the baby lead the weaning process. And the baby will start sleeping longer stretches when she's ready for it, which is not linked to feeding at all. And will also start dropping feeds when she's ready for it. But if we want the more parent-led approach, it's easier after 3 years. It's very uphill before that. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to do it without causing distress to the baby. It can be done, but then it takes like a very gradual 2 to 3 month gradual approach to doing it, which honestly is so tedious and exhausting that usually parents give up in the middle of it and say, like, forget it, I'm just going to nurse to sleep, because it's so uphill to do it. But you can, like, involve the father more in that process, and have the father handle some wakings. But consistency is important in that. The father needs to be like a consistent sleep caregiver to the baby, in order to build that in. Which actually brings us, I don't know if that answers your question, Simran.
It does, absolutely it does. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nutan, for your kind words coming from you, who, you're such a legend in this space. It really means a lot. Karan, what is the role of a father in the process? Oh, it's huge. The role of a father is absolutely huge. The father can do everything apart from like the actual breastfeeding, right? So, for example, the father can manage naps. Every nap doesn't have to be a breastfeeding nap. So, the father can rock and walk the baby to sleep. The father can hold during naps, even if the mom is nursing to sleep after the baby is asleep. And if a contact nap is required, the father can do it. Okay, let's say the baby's not accepting it, not having it. The baby only wants the mom, right? And only wants the breast. Then the biggest thing the father can do is actually take over the wake windows, right? So that the mom is able to do the holding and the contact and all the sleep parenting. Let's say the mom is doing the entire night shift, right? So the father can pitch in at night. The father can handle the whole bedtime routine. The father can be involved with nursing, rocking, which is often that alternating method is usually sometimes required at bedtime. The father can also handle some wakings through walking. But even if we assume that, the baby's not having it and the baby wants all sleep parenting to be done by the mother, in that case, the father can relieve the mother of everything else. So the father can do the whole bedtime routine up till the final soothing. The father can take the baby as soon as she wakes up at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. in the morning and let the mother sleep for another 2 hours, right? The father can handle the baby during wake windows so that the mom can get other stuff done if the mom is handling the baby during naps. So there's a lot the father can do actively to sleep parent. And yet there's a lot that even if that's not happening, the distribution of the workload of parenting can be done in a different way as well, where even if it is the mom doing the bulk of the sleep parenting, the father's doing everything else, from the bathing to the feeding to the playing to the, to all the rest of it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have been doing this throughout, and it was nice to hear it again. And I feel more confident, because sometimes you feel like, oh, you're doing so much of the mother's work. Not sometimes, only once I felt this, but that is a wrong notion, and I will not get into that. And taking the child early hours helps her a lot. Yeah, so thank you.
Yeah, it's honestly one of the most valuable things that a father can do, or like even a grandparent or another caregiver can do, to just give the mother a little bit of sleep in the mornings. That can really, really help. Yeah, it's wonderful that you're doing that. The other thing that fathers can also do, and a lot of fathers do, is they actually contact sleep with the baby at night. So although babies don't generally need holding at night, and they need holding only for daytime naps, the quality of sleep is different between daytime. Daytime sleep is a lot lighter than night sleep. So it's during the day that babies need contact naps and they need holding, and at night you can usually put them down. But a little trick is that if the father holds the baby at night and chest sleeps with the baby, the baby will actually very likely not wake up. So very often a baby who's waking up every hour or every 2 hours, the mom gets a 2 to 3 hour stretch of sleep because the dad has kept the baby on him. So it's just a way of, like, it's a little trick that one can do where the dad can contribute. Sometimes the dad may not be able to sleep that way. He may have to stay awake, or he may even be able to chest sleep. There are ways of doing safe chest sleeping as well. But that does give the mom a little bit of relief. So that's one potential way that a father can help as well.
I've experienced that when I call it my parking spot.
Yeah.
Like I park my baby here in the neck area. When their neck and my neck is touching, it is very soothing for them. Only on the left side, I feel that it's a spot where I can just put them and they feel as if they are with the mother. And most of the time, when they can't sleep without me nowadays, they look for me if I'm around. Like my son will go, if I'm working in the late night, he will not sleep without me. He'll come back to me, hug me and sleep. So it helps them a lot. We all sleep together, all of us. It's very nice.
That's lovely. Do you have twins? You mentioned multiple babies, I think. Or is it?
We have 3. Some are no.
Okay.
I am Saman's husband. So we have Kaira, Kabir, and
Oh,
Azad.
okay.
3.
Did not know that. All right. Now I get it. Right. Okay. Yeah, no. Right. Got it then. Right. Yeah. No, you're not. Okay. I have to correct you there. The baby is
Okay.
not
Okay.
sleeping on
Thanks.
your neck thinking that he or she is with the mother. The baby very well knows that you are the father, but that's enough, like, for the baby, like being with the father is also good enough for the baby. So yeah, it's good.
I
So
think
that's a great.
my daughter shared once that she likes this to smell also. She
She
likes
likes
to
the what?
have, she likes the smell of she likes to smell me.
Yeah,
As
of
in she
course.
loves my
Yeah.
pheromones. Like a father, she wants to be in those, she would want to go under my arm sometimes, like how cats also do.
Yeah. No, sometimes when parents talk to me about this and say, like, how can the father get more involved and the baby's not accepting the father and stuff like that. So one of the things I actually say is what I said earlier, where, if the mom even soothes the baby to sleep, whether through nursing or rocking or whatever that may be, the mom makes the baby fall asleep and then puts the baby on the father. There is a hormonal conversation that is going on between the baby and the father at that time. And because the baby smells the father and knows the hormones, the baby's acceptance of the father as a sleep caregiver grows. So it is one of the things that one can do to actually even build that bond between the baby and the father.
And I
So,
feel through natural birthing, the father has to be in the room, and in that moment you become a father. In the hospital, they tell you to go away from the event, and then you miss the moment. You can get it later,
yeah,
but I
many
feel
hospitals do allow the father in as well.
yeah. But I
But
realized
yeah,
when
I
I
agree
was in
that
the
the father
room,
should be there. Yeah.
when I was in the room, even especially with Azad, when I held him for the first time, they know it from the beginning that we are two, not one. So it's not just mother. There is one more person who's always around. So they sense it from the beginning. So it also helps. I feel. For us, that
Yeah.
helped. I feel.
Even through the pregnancy, the baby
Even through the
knows. The
pregnancy.
baby hears the father's voice, the father talking to the baby, reading to the baby. The baby knows the father even through the pregnancy. So absolutely. I think fathers should not shortchange themselves or feel in any way second fiddle to the mother. So I think my husband would not allow that. My husband feels that they're like his babies that he occasionally loans to me. So great to, yeah, absolutely. And I really wish that more fathers like you would share this experience with other fathers, because I think, like you said, there are so many doubts and reservations, and there's hesitation sometimes on the part of fathers, and hearing the experience of dads like you can really get them to tune into their own instincts, their own fathering instincts. So,
Yes. Yeah. When my kids also fall sick now, instead of going to the mother, they come to me. And we pray and we hug and we sit together. Only for nursing, they go to Saman. But they spend a lot of quality time and confidence time with me.
yeah,
Thank you.
that's great. You're obviously a safe space for them. Absolutely. Great. So shall we wrap up for now, Zareen? What do you say?
Yeah, I don't think we have any other questions. So thank you so much, Himani, for this wonderful session. A lot of great insights. Do you want to put up either in the chat or put up your screen again, how everyone can reach out to you? We'll have the recording as well too, which we'll share out. But if you wanted to just share that up again.
Sure. I'll just put my website here. This is a phone number that you can WhatsApp if you'd like to set an appointment. Otherwise, there are other ways like joining Gentle Baby Sleep India on Facebook. And on Instagram, I am at gentlebabysleep.counseling. And the book is called Sleeping Like a Baby. That's pretty much all of it. So putting it all out there.
Thank you so much. And
All
thank you.
right.
Someone has been a driving force for gathering all of these women together. So thank you, someone, for arranging all of this. And Himani, thank you again for all your time.
Thank you, Himani. Hi.
Hi, I hope you're doing okay. I know you had a rough night with unwell babies. So
So
yeah.
good to see. Good to see. Zareen, we went together.
Yeah, I think your voice is breaking a bit, someone, but yes, we went to school together. That's right. We went to school together. That's right. Someone and my brother were in the same class. My brother were in the same class. It's lovely to see you, you know, being such a community support and leader, someone. And I think this is a great community, and I'm happy to help in any way.
I'm sure all the mothers will be happy to take advantage of all the knowledge you'll share too.
Thank you so much, Zareen, for holding this, for conducting this. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.